Everyone's frozen.
Oh
Uh-oh.
no. Uh-oh. Jeffrey?
We're frozen.
Yeah. Oh, there, you're back.
Oh, we're
There
unfrozen.
you go. Go ahead, Jeffrey. Take it away.
Hey, everybody. Studio 4-8 partners here. Todd, Sarah, Jeff, Dan in the field coming at you. Part of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Snyder and Company brokerage in Ann Arbor, Michigan on this beautiful, on this gray day. It's beautiful wherever you are. I hope it's beautiful where you are. And we're coming back with our studio spaces to connect with you, share some good information, some good insight, and hopefully hear back from you on how we're doing. We always like to get feedback on how we're doing, other than our appropriate dress or maybe our hairstyle during our COVID lockdown here. So you're getting the real deal from all of us. How are you, Sarah?
I'm doing great. I've got my giant coffee mug. Had a cinnamon roll today. We're rocking and rolling this morning.
That's
Todd,
awesome.
you good?
Not doing too bad. I have the big old glass of water. No, that really is water that's in there. So you can't even, we're doing well. And like you said, Jeffrey, it's not exactly the prettiest day. It is kind of gray out there, but it is what it is, right?
As long as we're doing our cup share, I'll share mine. It's not requiring anyone to refer to me as Lord Jeffrey, but hey, you know what?
You wouldn't say no, would you?
I wouldn't say no. So, Sarah, what topics are we talking about today?
Well, I know that Todd wanted to share an update that just came out today. We're recording this on Thursday the 23rd, and we just got an update about forbearance. And Todd, you wanted to update us on that situation.
Yeah, so forbearance, we're just going to recap a little bit of what forbearance is. You own a house and you've got a mortgage on that house. Maybe you've gotten to the point where making payments during COVID-19 stay at home has become difficult. There's this thing called forbearance that banks may offer to their mortgage holders, and that is the opportunity to not pay for a period of time, 2 months, 3 months, something along those lines. Typically in forbearance, however, what happens is the bank then says, that's great, you don't have to pay for these 2 months, but on the third month, you need to catch up your payments. So you need to pay not only the third month, but also those 2 months that you skipped. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I know the federal government came out, the Federal Reserve came out and stated, hey, all you homeowners out there with mortgages, go ahead and ask for forbearance without any penalties. Go figure, it was cart before the horse because they didn't have some of the details nailed down. Some of those details have been squared away. Today, Michigan's Governor Whitmer has announced that in conjunction with about 200 lending groups, lending companies here in the state of Michigan, banks and brokerages, that they've got some expanded forbearance deadlines, mandates, guidelines put in place for folks. What I want to make sure that everyone hears early and often, talk with your lender. It doesn't matter what we say or what you hear from somebody else, talk with your lender. As is true in all real estate transactions, communication is key, and no more so than now when you've got questions or maybe concerns about paying your next monthly mortgage. Communicate with your lender. It is hyper important that you get the raw details from your lender on what forbearance is going to look like in your specific scenario. So if you do have questions, number one, talk with your lender. Number two, if you want to learn what the state of Michigan has kind of nailed down as far as guidelines are concerned for Michigan mortgage holders, go to the state of Michigan website. It's, oh bugger, I'm going to totally blank on it, but I believe it's
We'll
Michigan.
put it in the video.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. There'll be a little crawl right there that gives you the URL to go find this press release on Michigan forbearance. So that's what I got. It's not much of an update, but it's again hammering the idea, or at least speaking a little bit more clearly about talk with your lender. It doesn't matter what the feds or the state governments are telling us. At the end of the day, you need to know what the details are for you in your specific scenario as a mortgage holder.
Todd, I think that's so important because, even in a non-situation like this where we as realtors are talking to buyers and referring maybe 2 or 3 different lenders, we all know that there are national lending groups and there are local lending groups and there are portfolio loans and there are non-portfolio loans. So giving that open communication to find out where forbearance fits within that specific lending institution,
Yep.
really important.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. And even when we're outside of whatever normal this is, even in normal real estate times, we still have to have open and clear lines of communication between consumer and lender and real estate agents. So this is just an extension of that clear communication in the first place.
Is there normal real estate times?
Dude, there used to be, maybe? Although no two transactions are the same, so maybe not.
That's right. That's right.
Well,
Good.
speaking of the new normal, that's something else we wanted to bring to you today is what happens when we do start showing properties again? And how is that going to change with showings? Because you're hearing a lot online from other brokerages saying, virtual tours, virtual showings, and video walkthroughs. And I would say that is something that Studio 48 partners have done for years, is bringing you video and virtual tours as just a part of our normal marketing plan. But at some point, we recognize a buyer is going to need to come to the house to see it in order to feel comfortable making a purchase. And so we've been having conversations with our buyers and our sellers about what's that going to look like going forward, because we do anticipate that we are going to be able to show houses again soon. And what are we doing a little bit differently than we have been before to keep everybody safe and healthy? Jeffrey had a couple ideas about that today.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And what we are doing differently might actually be better phrased as, what are we doing in addition to? As a standard protocol, we all know that the first thing when you walk in somebody's property, especially one that's, and we're really talking about those that are currently occupied with a homeowner, is that there's either a sign that says take your shoes off, or there's a box full of booties to cover your feet. That's because the seller doesn't want you to track germs, track things through the house. So think of it as maybe an addition, an add on to that you're going to see maybe a bottle of hand sanitizer. Maybe there's some wipes. Maybe even somebody might say, you know what, I'm just going to offer some gloves. Obviously, when we first got into the pandemic, all of those things were like gold. They were very hard to find and hard for people to get. But once we roll into this sort of new normal phase, I think we will see that add-on of, you're coming into my property, I currently live here, I want to maintain as sanitary a house as possible. So since you're bringing in yourself, family, and other traffic, here's a couple additional things. So hopefully that won't be an abrupt thing for people to go, whoa, what's going on here? It will be more like, I got my booties, I got my gloves, I got my hand sanitizer, and just sort of an add-on.
And I also think that it will be the new norm to have sellers, when they're preparing their house for showings, we've always said, make it clean, turn the lights on, open the blinds, put the pets away, that kind of thing. But now let's take it a step further and say, it's not just a showing. We want it to be, as much as we can, a touch-free showing. So that might mean making sure that all the bedroom doors are already open, that closet doors are open, that the pantry door is open. You just want it so that a buyer can walk through and really get a sense of the house, look inside that closet, look inside that utility room without having to touch anything possible. It would be ideal if they could get through the whole house and really just get a good feel for it, and not have to be worried that they're opening and closing doors or drawers and that sort of thing. So that'd be another thing I would have recommended to sellers. And I think we're going to see agents and sellers asking that we limit the number of people coming through a house at a showing. So it might have been in the past that you'd bring the kids, you might bring mom and dad, everybody kind of wants to have a hand in it. It's really fun to look at houses. I think we're going to be asking people, to just the primary decision makers, to come to that showing. And even then, buyers agents and their clients are going to want to remain distant from one another for sure, just to keep us from having the second wave of infection and keeping everything clean. So those are some things that I see changing a little bit. And then, where are the sellers going to go during a showing? It's not anymore as likely that they're just going to go pop into Target and do a quick run while there's a showing. I mean, where are we going to ask people to go right now while there's a showing? Had some thoughts about that too.
Sarah, you make a really good point. things that carry over, that term touch-free. You know, we're seeing it in commercials on TV all the time in food delivery. So again, I think it'll be one of those things where it kind of triggers, oh, yeah, well, I mean, who doesn't like the idea of kind of a touch-free delivery of food? We don't want people touching our food. So maybe there's touch-free showings, and it won't, again, be this abrupt, what do you mean touch-free? It'll be more easily adopted.
There's also something that I've been reading online from some national real estate thought leaders, that we might see a resurgence and a greater adherence to confirming that the buyers coming through a home are actually approved to purchase that property before they walk through. And that would not be a bad thing for the industry as a whole. So number one, obviously the seller would benefit because they know that the person who's scheduled to come through their home with these showing protocols in place also is qualified to purchase the property. And for the buyers on their side as well, they walk through the home with the confidence that they already can purchase the property. So they're not endangering, quote unquote, themselves or the sellers of an occupied property by walking through a property that they just flat out can't afford, but they just want to see. I think potentially we're going to see a cutting to the quick, if you will, of seeing homes that are more realistic as opposed to just looking for decorating ideas.
And I also don't see us going back to doing public open houses or broker tours anytime soon. I, for one, have liked doing those because I know that there are those browsers who become buyers when they're able to walk through an open house, and I just don't see that happening physically, but we've seen success in doing right before the shutdown, and I think later, doing a scheduled virtual open house where one person, the realtor, the listing agent, is at the home for a couple of hours doing a Facebook Live type event like we're doing here, or just waiting for the questions to come in about the property. Maybe a buyer sends a message and says, hey, can I get a sense for how big the master bedroom is? And we can walk right over to the master bedroom and open the door and kind of go, well, you know, here's about 4 feet and here's about 8 feet, and really give the buyers a sense that they can ask those questions and have an intimate virtual experience as opposed to just going through a video tour. But yeah, I don't see us doing a public open house or broker tour anytime soon. And that's okay. I think we'll get to that eventually, but for now we want to stay safe and clean. So.
I think those are sage words right there, Sarah. I really do.
Well put.
Definitely. So for anybody that has followed along with Studio Spaces for the last few weeks, you'll notice that there is a fourth face that you've not yet seen. And that's our agent, Dan Carrillo. Dan Carrillo today literally is going to be our man in the field. And just want to introduce that we've gotten some audio that was pre-recorded by Dan out in the field, and we're gonna put him in here right now. He's going to talk a little bit about buying vacant land. It's a little bit different than buying a house or a condo. It's similar in many ways, but it's a little bit different because you've got other considerations that need to be handled and squared away. So with that, let's go to Dan Carrillo, our man in the field.
So, although my internet connection this week prevents me from broadcasting with the rest of the gang over Zoom, it doesn't stop me from telling you about vacant land. Now, vacant land doesn't always mean buildable land, and that's really the big distinction you have to be on the lookout for. There's a lot of vacant land, it just doesn't have anything on it. And sometimes there's a reason. Sometimes there isn't. But when you're looking at land, and importantly when you're marketing land, if you're trying to sell land, buildable land is a lot more valuable than vacant land. It takes a little bit of work to get buildable land out of vacant land. Now, what's the difference? Well, we'll talk about what to look for when you're looking at vacant land, and we'll come back to this at the end. Now, vacant land, when you're shopping for it, one of the biggest considerations is, where is it? You can't really move land, so it's important how you get to the land. Is it adjacent to a road? Maybe two. Or is it set back? Is it behind other properties? Are you going to be able to tap right into a road and get an address there? Or are you going to need to get an easement over somebody else's property? Those are some things you're going to have to figure out when you're shopping for land. Is that something you want to go through? What's your preference? Then you can find land that fits that, but can't really rearrange it. Now, the other thing to consider there is frontage. Are you able, with that piece of land, to have enough road frontage to register it with the township? Every municipality is going to be a little bit different on exactly what those frontage requirements are. So, like we always say, check your local listings and with your buyer's agent to find out exactly what's going to work for you. Now, once you've found a piece of land that's where you'd like it, let's say it adjoins a road, you're going to want to find out exactly what that land is, what you're buying. So, you're going to want a survey. And surveys are expensive. It's a justified cost, absolutely, because you want to know exactly what you're buying, where it is, what the boundaries are. But it's a cost you're going to incur one way or the other, vacant land or buildable. Now, it's important too, once you get past that step, you're going to have to go through zoning. Make sure you can build the kind of home that you want to build there. You're going to have to get building permits. You're going to have to get a permit for a driveway. There's a lot of legwork involved with developing land. And some of that is part of the land itself, not just the township. So you want to make sure that this land you find has a buildable envelope, somewhere a house can reasonably sit. It's not all hills that are going to have to be flattened out. The grading isn't going to be pouring water down to the house. You're going to want to make sure you go through all those things. And even then, you have other concerns as well. From deed restrictions, maybe certain kinds of homes can't be built on this land. Maybe you have a homeowners association that mandates certain kinds of materials on the outside of the house. All those things have to be taken into consideration in building the home that you want to build. Now, it's important to consider too, once you have that home, how are you going to service it in terms of utilities? Are you going to be able to run water and sewer to the home, where you're going to have to put in water and sewer and usually pay a hookup fee to tap into city sewer? Or are you going to have to get a septic field and a well, in which case you're going to have to make sure that that land can pass a perk test, that the soil is suitable for a septic system. That's one of those things that can help make land buildable. Now, you're also going to have to run other types of utilities. You're going to have to get electricity out there, phone, cable, gas. Maybe if you can't get to a gas line, for instance, where I live out here, we don't have natural gas. So we have a big old propane tank out by the house, not too close to the house. We're not trying to be crazy. But you have a propane tank, and that's another cost that you're going to have to incur. So it can be very costly to build a piece of land. And some of that stuff, in terms of getting the zoning, the paperwork, making sure you have enough frontage, all of those things, maybe a percolation test, all of those things can be done before you bring a piece of land to market. And that's the difference between vacant land, where you've done none of that work. You just said, yep, this is a piece of land I own and I would like to sell it. You can do that, but I wouldn't. What we usually recommend is that you put in the work, you do the homework ahead of time, and that you make your land marketable and attractive to the point where someone can show up with a buyer with plans and say, yep, that's where I want my house, and get to work. And there's value in that. And you can create that value just by doing the homework ahead of time. So, if you're looking for a piece of vacant land, your takeaways should be, do your homework, make sure everyone else involved in the process did their homework, and get yourself a buyer's agent. Look at all those restrictions to find the land that's going to work for you. If you're looking to sell a piece of land, once again, do the homework. It's important to make sure the land that you're bringing to market is as valuable as possible. Ultimately, that's why you're selling it. And so to do that, you got to put in a little bit of work. And that's one of those things. Talk to an agent. Find out exactly how to market that land. What's going to be in your best interest. One more thing to note in terms of vacant land. Financing land is not always the easiest thing to do. A lot of lenders simply don't work with vacant land. So as you're going through this process, if you're not able to make a cash offer or purchase a piece of land with cash, you're going to have to find lenders that specifically focus in financing vacant land, buildable land. That's another one of those things. Talk to your agent. Find those lenders that are able to help you get to closing. And in unrelated news, my neighbor, shortly down the way, has a cell tower in his field full of cows. The cows are doing great, and I've heard the connection there is just what you're looking for. Now a quick update on the state of our internet connection. We've been taken hostage by AT&T, and that means we've had to go back to some older types of technology. Now, hasn't been terrible. Reception is better, honestly, but in terms of compatibility, I got the newer iPhone here, and the ports just aren't the same. They're not what they used to be. But AT&T has assured me that for the third time in as many weeks, our issues are going to be resolved. And you may ask, well, how bad could it be? Do you remember dial-up that replaced this guy with phone wires? Well, our download speeds are dial-up speeds, and our upload speeds are not. So, what that means is that I have what's left is the ability to call, text, email, and tweet in plain text. So, in terms of working with my clients, I've been able to do that just fine. And, not to brag, I can even load still images. Can't send them, but with time, they'll load.
Fantastic report, Dan. Fantastic report.
Spectacular.
Now get out of that field.
Great information, and he really touches on some important points.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And we appreciate Dan's spirit at being willing to do something just a little bit different and a little bit out there and have a little bit of fun with it, like the studio likes to do.
Well, it was really good seeing all of your faces and getting together again. And as Todd mentioned earlier, we love hearing from you. If you've got questions or topics that you'd like us to dive into, we would love to do the research and bring you the information that you want to hear. So no question is too mundane. We would love to chat with you about things that you are interested in, and can't wait to see all of you again soon.
Excellent. All right.
Be well. Be well.
You got it. Stay home, be safe, be well.
Coffee mug.
Mm.
Cheers.
Cheers.